Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast of Growth to Togetherness. And today we welcome to our podcast series Leah Chaney as our special guest. So welcome, Leah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Great. We're looking forward to the conversation as well. So again, thank you for spending and investing your time, and we are really looking forward to this conversation. But before we delve into it, could you maybe give a little bit of an introduction about yourself and your and where you're from?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Leah Chaney, and I am the founder and chief experience officer at BetterGrowth, which is an agency designed to help world leaders scale their revenue centers, focusing on the art of customer success, expansion, renewals, CS having a seat at the revenue table. It's also around helping sales. So I'm partnered with my CEO, who comes from an extensive background in sales. Together, him and I come in and help align customer success and sales teams and marketing and engineering and everyone to all have accountability towards the growth and retention of the customer base. I've been in business for about 4 years. And since then, we've taken on a new passion of mine, which is recruiting. So we have a full recruiting team up and running where we're helping companies to build onboarding programs and to eliminate the barriers to entry so you can hire junior employees and give them a shot at being amazing in technology. And what I've found from that is organic diversity, loyalty, higher retention of employees. It's been fantastic.
Wow, I love that. So and also you're a lecturer, right? At least in the community we're a part of.
Yes,
Professor Chaney.
Yes,
Professor Chaney.
Now I've got the short sleeves and bow ties. So you usually see me in a crooked bow tie. I'm the Dean of Chief Customer Officer School, CCO School at Pavilion. We're actually about to kick off semester 2 here on May 18th. It's very exciting. And I also lecture across the CS space and diversity space, which is really exciting. I'm a big advocate and proud member of the LGBTQIA+ community. And that is how I came to know you all and a lot of wonderful, wonderful people through Pavilion. Yes.
Wow. Thanks, Leah. And I've experienced some of these courses myself as well, and I must say it's tremendous value. And great to have you in here as well and talk about this topic of today, which is all about how inclusivity benefits business. So really looking forward to delve a little bit deeper into that topic. Get to know your stories, your learnings, your failures as well on these areas, and what your point of view is, obviously. So,
well, if we're talking about my failures, you probably should have allotted more than 30 minutes.
That's good to hear that, right? Then at least you've learned a lot, probably, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be a professor.
I've learned a lot more from failing than I ever did for the few wins, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's so true.
Right, cool. So before we start, we have a tradition here, so to say. So could you tell us something people don't know about you?
Wow, I'm so honest on LinkedIn. I think it's getting harder and harder. I was on Last Comic Standing, the second season. And spoiler alert, I was not the last comic standing, but I made it pretty far in 2003. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really
That was
cool.
my 15 minutes of fame. I did some cool stuff with that. Yeah.
That's probably why you're so easy in your lecturing and staying entertaining all the time, because the stuff in CCO school, because I was one of your students. That's how we met. You were always able to bring over the passion, even though sometimes we're talking about processes or maybe not the sexy stuff, but you're still able to bring it with a certain appetite, and I really love that. So that's where it's coming from. Yeah.
I feel like laughter is a universal language. It's not owned by politics. It's not owned by anyone, right? Anyone can laugh. And I think it is a great way to find community and common ground. And it has been It's been probably a superpower that I discovered young from studying those who are good at it. So I think laughter it's medicine, and it's universal, it's community building, and it keeps your attention. So yeah, thank you.
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and with the laughter, I like that one, because I more or less have defined that for myself now as a criteria also for qualification, right? So if I have initial dialogues, for example, with a prospect, and I have not laughed right after the discovery or the session or so on, for me that's like, is this really a person which I can actually probably work with for a longer time or so? So for me, it's almost like a qualification criteria now, having it in place. So and that's it's very underestimated, I think, in the world of business, so to say.
Absolutely. I totally agree. There needs to be more laughter, the right kind of laughter, right? I think
exactly.
If you have a company where you can laugh with each other, right, not at anyone's expense, that's one of the fastest ways to get to psychological safety. Does everyone feel comfortable laughing? Can anyone within the organization feel like they can be lighthearted and come together and share a laugh? And I think that's one of the biggest indicators that you've been successful in building culture is listen for the laughter. What happens when, if you're a CEO, walk around, we're remote now, listen on your Zoom, are people laughing? How frequently, right? I think it's a great indicator of success.
Listen for the laughter, indicator of success. Noted. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely.
But that's funny, because that's actually the reason for us in our company that we want to make impact. But we want to make fun as well. So that's where the I and the F is standing for, impact and fun. So we find it so important in building our own business.
Yeah, absolutely.
A question from me to you, Leah. So, could you mention one thing that's one milestone that changed your life?
Oh, I mean, are we talking professional or business? Because personal or professional. Personal was having my baby girl. My wife brought our baby girl into the world during 2020, and everything changed for me, right? And it did change me professionally as well, because I think despite my ability to find joy, I think in a lot of things and to laugh, my own laughter had kind of slowed down quite a bit, as most of us have. And I found myself kind of chasing happiness as if it was just one higher paycheck away, or one higher title away, or, one more, large speaking engagement away, right? Like I always moved my own carrot. And when I had a baby, just none of that mattered as much. And I started to be more successful. I started to be more natural, right? And vulnerable. And I think it was just because I had to get to know myself to be a good parent. So yeah, I think it changed everything for me.
I love that one, because that is the intertwine between work and your personal life balance, that it becomes more kind of a flow. Maybe sometimes it brings some stress, like Jeroen just before running through the pharmacy, picking something up and then jumping into this podcast. But at the same time, you're becoming so much more flexible. And I know my brother is saying, he doesn't have children. He's always saying like, how are you managing it? You're working full time, you're having 2 kids, you're having a social life, you're sporting, etc. But it's just, but I need all those things in my life to be happy.
Yeah. And I mean, it just changed everything. And she's, she's amazing. I underestimated my everything. I've always been pretty independent, and I'm a humble human, but I'm also very confident in my abilities. And all of that was shooketh to the core, as I think it is for most parents, when you realize that it's a lot of things. You just, nobody knows what they're doing. It's different for everyone. But it's, at the end of the day, it's made me realize that the only performance review I really care about is what is hers, at the end of my time here. So, but yeah, I mean, I've been on this self journey, as you know, and, I've stopped focusing as much on my career and making money, and I've started focusing more inward on how to love myself and how to be a better human. And I think in doing so, I have become more successful, and it's a little mind-blowing. I think I was at the brink, like a lot of us. I just wanted to quit. I didn't have it in me to keep going, and something about that rawness and vulnerability just had an impact I never expected. And I think that that's where, you know, some people, the best thing to do in life is just to let go for a second and just believe in yourself and trust that you're gonna fall gracefully in the right direction. And I think that it's scary, but that happened for me, and it started with childbirth. Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks for sharing that, Leah. And
Of course.
I think, over the course of the last years, I think a lot of people have have experienced these type of things, right? Whether it's a very personal situation where you experience having a child, or COVID obviously changed also a lot, right? That the relationship that people have with work, and maybe in your case, and in my case was more or less as well. It's a combination of both. But looking at it not solely from a chasing that next paycheck or title and so on. I think that's what I hear a lot. That people are looking at it at far much more at the different roles they are fulfilling and the intertwinedness between those, instead of having a Leah at work, or in my case, a Jeroen at work and a Jeroen professional, and etc. Right? Becoming more one.
I love that. And I think it's absolutely true. Right. And I know you're interviewing me, but I would love to ask you both the same question. I mean, but before I do, I want to say that, like, I talk to so many people now. I didn't talk to so many people before, right? Like, I was in an office filled with people, and I have more conversations now that I've learned to be comfortable in solitude and to reach out to people and establish real connections. I've made real friendships in the professional space, you know, that I didn't have before. And so I'm questioning, sorry, they're doing lawn work outside. But I'm questioning what that's like for you all as well. Like, did you find that? Did you find like you connected more with humans as you kind of stepped away from the public for a minute? Elizabeth, maybe start with you.
Yes, absolutely. But also getting out of the comfort zone. From being an employee to becoming an entrepreneur is a big change. You know, in the beginning it felt hard to build up new relationships. Like, you know, are people thinking you're asking something from them? Yeah. Instead of, you know, that you're really interested to talk to peers and to share knowledge and everything you care about, and finding same-minded people. And it was really something I had to learn. And I'm an easy talker, so that's not a problem. But it's more like, because of working remotely, it's so different than meeting people in real life. But at the same time, you're forced to. And yes, it's absolutely true. You know, also overseas, like you, but also others coming from Pavilion or in another way, and it's so great to meet people this way.
Hey, totally.
Yeah, you're becoming more aware, I think, of it, right? I think for me also, an event happened in my life. My daughter of 3 at that point in time. I was traveling a lot, right? Doing the business stuff, like you said earlier, right? Chasing the next title, and every week I was in London or Nuremberg or whatever, right? And then she asked me the question, when will you be there for dinner, Daddy? And then that for me was a big moment when I was thinking, okay, is this the way I want to design my life going forward? And both me and Lisbeth were quite a fan of the thought process and mindset of Simon Sinek, the guy from the Golden Circle. But looking honestly at myself in the mirror, I was deploying it at work, not in the rest of the roles I fulfilled in the rest of my life. And for me, 220 was a big change, because I started to deploy it also now as a role I fulfill as a father, as a friend, as a husband, and so on, instead of being just solely on work. And that was, for me, was the biggest game changer, as well as becoming aware of that networking is not just a physical thing you do at a booth, but when you become part of Pavilion, you network and connect with people on all that type of different things. And indeed, far much more remote now, but I'm connecting more and more now with people than probably 3 years ago. So I can only acknowledge.
And also something I think, when you start in business and people are asking you for specific assignments, and in the beginning you're saying, oh yes, that's fine. But if you're not working with, same-minded people, or you're taking assignments, what is not close to your heart, it's not fulfilling you with happiness. So we became more stronger in really staying purpose-led in what we do. And that is bringing so much to us, not only in terms of how we deliver our services, but as well as how we build connections, I think, all over the world with new people.
I love it. It's fantastic. And I think, as you're building a business, running CS, growing a team, we are all taking this knowledge back of not only understanding ourselves at our core, which most of us didn't know when we were just living to work. We're also taking this understanding of our customer, because we're all customers of each other at the end of the day. And I just think it's really powerful. I think, you can sit and think about a lot of negatives in this world, and there are plenty to overwhelm you. But if you can stop for a second and find the personal growth, the joy, the change that is being made by each of us a little bit of a time, right? Like beyond everything, all the noise, all the pain, there's a lot of self-growth. And I think this is something that will, we all went home, and for us that are parents, we learned the art of being parents for the first time in generations again, because we were forced to, and it was great. And for those of us that aren't parents or weren't parents, we learn to listen to ourselves and to, take time for ourselves and to be comfortable in waiting and patience. And so I think we're, people will study this for years, but I think despite the noise of social media and chaos out there in this world, I think that we all reconnected as humans, and that's powerful. That's more powerful than, anything I think that's happened in a very long time with technology or anything else. Is just getting back to the human core. So it's cool. I think it's awesome.
I love that. Back to the human core. So that brings us a little bit into another topic. I wanted to delve a little bit deeper on it also with you and get your point of view on and the why, so more specifically. So we talked a little bit about of course, business needs to earn money, right? But growing also means self-development and most likely transforming to a purpose or an aspirational identity we want to become. So we wrap that up in like playing the game of growth to togetherness. And playing that game of growth to togetherness means also most likely assessing the way you attract and retain talent, right? So commercial talent, so CS talent, marketing talent, sales talent, etc. Right? So why do companies need to consider an inclusive culture in this?
Yeah, I mean, I think more so than ever before, inclusivity is something there's data around now. We're embarrassingly behind in the software as a service industry and taking it serious. And I think a lot of people jumped into collecting people without having real efforts for those humans to be successful, right? Like it's easy to collect diversity and different varieties of skin tone and gender and embrace LGBTQ, but it's completely different to then set the stage for those people to have psychological safety and feel as confident as their privileged counterparts that have been set up to succeed for ever. And,
true.
Yeah, and so I think that the real core of that is you've got to start it top down. If your board is all white males and your leadership team is all white males, and then your middle management team starts to get into diversity, you're just basically asking employees to come in and fight a battle upward to prove their value and to make space for them. And I think that where companies have the most success is when they have a healthy representation of diversity from the top, and also when they get rid of barriers to entry to let real diversity in from the bottom. I think one of the things that has become most mind-blowing to me once I got from the distraction of working for companies where I was, like most individuals, face down with work every day. I mean, I was terrible at diversity. I didn't even represent my own community of LGBTQ individuals because I was busy and I was distracted and work was life, right? And so I think now we're in a spot where we can actually do diversity correctly. And I found it as owning my own business where I get to talk to way more companies at scale. I've found it just mind-blowing to me how in the software space in particular, we tout CEOs that like dropped out of high school and developed a product in their garage, but yet we expect these entry-level employees to have 2 to 5 years experience and come from university. It's
ridiculous.
So let's just start with the absurdity of that. And so, I think most people in recruiting want to recruit senior executives because they make money on commission. And I stopped caring about money, which made me more money. And I started paying attention to the ground floor and getting rid of barriers to entry and building training programs that actually helped people come through the door and be successful at customer success or sales, and go through like a CS 101, go through like a course, and then tie that into the business where they're learning about the business. And then, yes, their onboarding period is a little lengthier, 3 weeks or so, but most people don't know what the hell to do with somebody for the first 3 weeks of their job. So organize it, right? And then they sit day one, they're ready to go. I bring their leaders into the training. And so it's not about me, it's about their leadership team. I'm just helping them scale their leadership team by creating good content. And, from there, they've been set for success, right? Like the playing field is equal. In fact, a lot of times, and what I've found is over 4 years of doing this, that the retention rate of these employees that I hired from Starbucks or Target or all of these places and put them through these programs, that they were, at 3 years, there was still with some of my major clients, there was over 92% retention rate, where and a 3-year tenure. Whereas if I took the people I recruited with the 2 to 5 years experience, their average tenure was 8 months with the company because they were being recruited away. And so, I mean, you can't deny data, and the facts are that people are loyal to companies that give them a shot. But if you're just going to make some, hopefully I can say half-ass, program that they're not designed to succeed in, then they will fail. Then you will put that target worker there with people that have SaaS experience, and they will fail. They won't hit their numbers. So you got to dedicate yourself to it. It's not that expensive. It's a lot cheaper than having employees churn to invest in a program like I built.
Yeah, exactly.
That is such a good one.
Sorry,
no, because that is what you're saying, Leah. I think one of the most underestimated cost in a company, churn of employees.
Yeah. All we really truly focus on, at least in my world of customer success, is the churn of customers. But what I've found is customer churn, when you have happy employees, when employees stay, the customer churn is also less, right? Like I have spent years teaching people how to focus on their customers and ignore their employees. Like that's what I did as a living, right? As a CS leader. And then I realized that actually, if I spent the majority of my time on people in the organization and giving them psychological safety and making sure that they were happy and that they were nurtured and that they could speak and that we had diversity and inclusion, which gave us like ideas as opposed to groupthink where we all just are arguing for 3 hours or spending time in a room just so at the end of the day, the same dude that was going to make the decision made the decision and none of our voices mattered.
The same dude, exactly. The same dude, the white male, is going to make the decision.
Yes, and I mean, and myself included, right? Like I'm a member of the LGBT community, but I grew up with privilege. I've never gone without. I was given, opportunity to get to university. And so, I learned over time that, it's not about how smart you are. It's about how creative you are with bringing smart people to you. And that if you're building something, surround yourself with people who are passionate and intelligent and come from all walks of life, and you will go faster and further than you ever will if you make everyone sit down and take notes about how you see the world, you know?
Yeah, that's why I organize these podcasts and have guests like you and Lisbeth obviously, right? So that I surround myself with the smart people.
Yes. Well, I am in the company of that today. And yeah, listen, I mean, it's hard because I think, you know, we see it done well at a lot of companies, and despite ourselves, we try to copy everything else. We try to copy how Google, when Google was popular, you know, had beanbag chairs all over a lounge and, you know, brought NSYNC to sing or whatever they did, right? I just showed my age. But at the end of the day, that's not what people want now. And you've got to follow humanity. And although that might have attracted people 2 decades ago, what people want now is safety of being able to be themselves. They want to you know, see representation of who they are around them, and they want to be a part of a community. And, you know, culture is, I wish people would get rid of the word culture at times, because it should be community. Where's the community within your organization? Is it healthy? I mean, if people live at work and they wear your shirt every day and that's all they care about, that's not healthy, right? Healthy is that they go to work, they love what they do, they're passionate about the product, customers feel that in return, and then they go home and they recharge and they take their vacation and they laugh with their children and their families and their coworkers, and they move on, right? And it's organic and it's natural. And the best way to do it is to let diversity in the door, set them up for success, get out of the way, and provide them opportunity for growth. And I think that if there's anything that we've learned from the pandemic, it is that middle management is unnecessary. It's get rid of all of these barriers, right? Like have multiple team leads, have leaders, have individuals working, put your teams in pods, put your little communities together and let people come up with ideas and challenge each other. You know, all these organizations that have come up with this hackathon, it's a day that everybody gets together and brainstorms ideas. Do that every day. Like that should be life, not a special day of the year, right? And I'm interested to see where companies go. I don't have the answer. No. Nobody has the answer, but I can tell you that what worked in 2019 will not work in 2022 and
exactly.
beyond.
That's so true, because building the bridge here to the next topic. So, you know, playing that game changes over time, right? And if we connect it to the topic of or the theme of this podcast, grow through togetherness, and also grow through diversity and inclusivity. So what I wonder is, you know, everyone's saying, yes, we are doing it, or no, not doing it. We want that. We need that.
Yeah.
But still, it's very hard acting on it. And it's still, you know, acting through a lens of bias. So what do you see here as obstacles? Why it's so hard to play that game? Well, it's not a kind of a game, but you know what I mean, you know, a kind of new direction we're going in. So what is stopping those leaders of really acting on it?
Money. It's always money. You know, I've spent so much of my life in software, and as a leader, I became a leader very young, which I encourage people not to. I wish I hadn't become a leader so young at times, because I think there's so much art to being an individual contributor. But I became a leader really young. And I think that one of the things that I've seen is just you start with this idea, this napkin, you know, conclusion from a young CEO, a young entrepreneur. And they never start with, I don't want diversity. They never start with, I don't want great things to happen. The majority, maybe some do, but I doubt it. But over time, they borrow money. They take in investors, and to grow that, it does terrible things, and it distracts from the human side, right? And with each round of investment, with each person that jumps on board, there's more and more of, focus on numbers. It all becomes numbers. And, I don't think I've ever sat in a boardroom where the boards said, what is the retention of employees? How happy are they? I know great investors. It's not that these people are terrible, but I think to really change the world, you have to start with more pressure on diversity within the top, the boards, and more emphasis around the health of an organization, right? And less of this copycat, this company did it well, so let's mimic what they did, because it needs to be organic. And honestly, it should look different every company. I think that that's the real challenge, is that as the company succeeds, people fall further and further and further into a corner. And when you lose the human side of things, then things get really complicated. And so, again, I think the solution to it is from the boardroom and from CEOs. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the biggest pitfall.
Yeah. I think it's money. I think it's multipliers. I think it's, it's all of those things. And there are some people that break through the barriers and don't care about it. And for the few that make it successful, they help us. They help us in showing the importance of that. But, until we have more people in this world that really care about humans from the very, very, very top down, I think it'll always be a challenge.
I agree.
Yeah, it is something recognizable. We see some trends rising, at least in some, for example, VC firms, where there's more of an intertwinedness between growth metrics and happiness metrics, so to say. I'm looking at it from a more social cause related perspective as well. But there's a long way to go, I think, there. That's for sure. So,
Can I say one more thing on this, though? I want to say this to not leaders. I know we have leaders out there, and I think that a lot of the leaders that listen probably are nodding their head and wish they can do that. I think that more companies that are fine, like my company is bootstrapped, right? Like I didn't take investment, and I probably would be a lot more successful if I did, to be honest with you. I've thought about it at times as we grew different parts of the program, but I've maintained my ability to pay myself and my teams through work. And that has been terrifying at times, but it's also been humbling, and it's grown me. And I think that more and more entrepreneurs getting out of this investor world will change that some. And I want to tell people out there that are job hopping and looking for things that, look at the finances. I don't think enough people look at that when they're looking for the job. They look at their paycheck, right? Yeah. Look, like a really dear friend of mine and mentor taught me a long time ago that you can make $1 million a year, but if you only get one paycheck of that, what good is it? So sure, maybe your salary is really high, but look at how much money that company has taken. I think a lot of people, we see these series rounds and we're like, they just took like $50 billion. And like, I don't know much about your company's finances, so I hope I'm not like pointing anything there, but
no.
What that says is like, okay, cool. That's debt. How are you going to pay that debt off? Is it going to be in loss of happiness and like insane quotas, or, what is it? And so I just want to tell leadership, individual contributors, when you're looking for a job, get into the finances of the business, understand what they owe, what they need to do, because I think oftentimes that is going to be a big play into what your happiness is. And that's just honesty.
And I love that. I think it's almost like a paradigm shift, right? Because for me, prior to you bringing this up, I would say, to delve into the happiness potential of the company, I wouldn't need to go into the financial part. But actually, now how you're expressing it, and it gives you actually insight by analyzing that. I love it. It's I think a great advice, and something at least I've learned and for today as well. So thanks for sharing that, Leah.
Of course, yes.
So you're coming from a focus, obviously, on a heavy CS ground, right? Also a professor in that area. So what are the key steps to introduce inclusivity in A or in D CS team?
Oh, yes, this is so important because, the customer success team, although they don't own everything with the customer, right? That should be spread out through the organization, as Elizabeth knows from taking my class. They are the operational arm of customers, right? They are going to be monitoring the health. They're going to be building the relationships. They're going to be that single source for the customer when executed correctly. And they should absolutely represent your customer. So unless you're running a company where all you want is white men, maybe make sure that your customer success team represents that as well. Unless you're running a company where all you want is, LGBTQ women with a faux hawk like me, they should represent it as well, right? It's across the board. I think it's really important to have a mix of people and backgrounds and ideas that come into customers, because we are all a customer. None of us aren't a customer, right? And so I think that representation matters. I know that for me personally, let's take buying a car, right? Like, I hate buying a car, like I'm sure a lot of people do. And so companies have tried to solve for people like me that don't want that debate with some, car dealer who's going to, try to talk all this magic and do their job and hit their numbers. Like, I just want to pick out my car, and I want to get my car, and I want to math my numbers and know my numbers, right? So it's the same thing with customer success. People don't want to not be represented. They want, to have diversity within the customer, supporting teams that they're dealing with. And I think that some of the companies in the world who I've never worked with, but who I've admired, like American Express and others, I think they've done a good job at having diversity. And so when I reach in as a customer, I get that back. Like, I live in the South now. There's not as much representation in, South Carolina in the United States to the LGBTQ community. And the other day I was getting car insurance, and I was putting my wife on my policy and talking through, and, the agent started chatting to me, and I said, oh, my wife and I, we have a 2-year-old, and it's, chaos. And the person on the other line, who was also a woman, said, oh, my wife and I have a 5-year-old. And I just, that moment, I felt like I was talking. You see all these commercials where it's you talking to you. And I felt that, right? I felt community in that moment with that person, and my loyalty to that brand went up because I felt represented. And I think that that's just really important. And so customer success, above all else, should be extremely diverse. And that includes with where people come from, right? They don't need to all come from university. They don't need to all come from, the same place. And I think a lot of people do try to collect diversity by, collecting different skin tones, collecting different, backgrounds, and they're all getting them from university. And so, if you put me and one of my dear friends, I have a dear friend from Columbia, and her and I, went to the same university. We studied the same thing. And if you hired both of us, we probably would have a lot of the same ideas, so it's also where you're bringing people from, making sure that diversity is represented from the ground floor of, society, that you're getting people in here that, experience things different ways from each other to have really innovative ideas.
Yeah, I love that, because I think also more particular, I think it was maybe a couple of weeks ago or so, I listened to an internet podcast, and actually one of the speakers was elucidating on that it might not always be a good thing to hire for cultural fit, right? Sometimes you also need to hire for when there's more inclusivity, and then most likely it shouldn't always be a fit, right? Because otherwise, in my case, you have 10 rooms. I'm not sure if that's good for a team.
Oh God, no. One is enough.
We have the answer already.
I'm happy with you, but one is enough. Yeah, that makes absolute sense. But when you're talking about that, Leah, and you're talking about it kind of, you recognize the other. It doesn't matter if it's about both being parents or whatever. That's kind of bonding or what's coming into play here. So if you would connect that to the effect of this inclusivity or diversity to commercial togetherness, what do you see as business benefits?
like when we work together, like when we had a little break there. When we work together in community, what does that do to business? Was that the question?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it brings an understanding. It brings it takes away some of the anxieties, right? I think that and this is going back to my comment on middle management too, right? Like at the end of the day, we're all trying to achieve our maximum potential in business, most of us, right? Like we want to succeed. And usually success looks like a bottle, right? Like we're all fighting for that next position, or we all want that next promotion, raise, whatever you want to call it. And there's all of us in a room, and there's only a small opportunity, and we're fighting for it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think where community and inclusion comes in is when you have people representing different aspects of life, we're getting to know each other. It's a different game. It's more inclusive. We're supporting one another. And the distraction of who gets through that door is less, because it's more about learning to work within, different cultures and communities, and having different ideas. And that's why I say, like, get rid of the small window and keep an open opportunity that's as big as the group sitting there, right? Like everybody should be able to move in a direction. It shouldn't be a one-way ticket for one person. And when you get good diversity and inclusion, I think you see different leaders emerge, and I think you see different opportunities. So maybe one person moves up directly above them, another person, ends up finding that they have more of a strength in marketing, and they move over to marketing, and a parallel move up, another individual moves maybe into sales. And when you bring people in from a diverse background and have everybody focus on a customer, you can have that kind of growth within an organization, and it really opens up the room to move up, to do something next, and it takes away from that competition. But when you put a lot of people that look like each other, they are too narrow-minded. They only see themselves moving into that next position, and they become competitive instead of communicative and a community. And so true diversity, when done correctly, distracts from some of that and ends up opening up its own opportunities for growth, right? And that's why I like also hiring people with different backgrounds and putting them through training, because maybe I hire a bunch of young individuals and I teach them the art of customer success, but they never had a chance to realize that not only are they good at customer success, they're amazing at sales, and that's where they want to go. And so they grow into sales, or they're amazing at engineering. They never had that opportunity, and they start tuning it. This has happened to me as a CS leader, right? I've hired people and watched them all grow in a different direction and within the company. And one of them go into engineering, one of them go up into leadership and CS, one of them go into marketing. And when you have a strong representation also in the leadership team, that stuff is encouraged. That kind of growth is encouraged. So yeah, that all comes from diversity and inclusion. It just changes the game.
No, it's so interconnected. If I hear that in a business, and with human at the core, and I really love that. And quite some stories are recognizable for me as well in situations I've been in. And it brings back some memories, but also some future point of views, which I hope to see more rising in front of me when collaborating in a community we're all part of, right, Leah? So right. So this was for me at least. So some more explicit business benefits brought to the forefront, because I had an understanding on the topic, obviously, right, and tried to deploy it myself as well in the different roles I fulfill in my life. But now translating it in such clear, concise business benefits is thanks for sharing that, Leah. And if you would be looking on this topic, right? So obviously yourself as well, right? As a professor, there's always room to learn and grow. So what are your top priorities connected to this topic?
I think I want to learn to always be real. I think I have played a caricature, like a lot of us, of what a leader looks like. And although I think I've been a good leader, I don't think I have been vulnerable. And, I've started to really express myself. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you know this. I don't hold back. I share my falls. And I meant that. I've failed a lot in life. But I don't see them as failures now. I see them as caricature building moments in my life. And, I've taken a lot of time to reflect over the last couple of years. And I'm just really encouraging leaders, CEOs, to stay vulnerable. I think most of us want to work for humans right now. And I think, at a point in my career, I wanted to see a CEO that drove a Tesla and had all this money because that seemed like happiness to me. And I think as we see celebrities around us, exposing how no matter how much money you have, you're not that happy. I think the truth is we all want to work for humans. And I want to see CEOs be vulnerable and honest and, not be afraid to be really human, because I think that's true success now in life. True success now in life is just being a real human being, and a trustworthy human being with integrity. And I think that if more and more CEOs drop the act, they're going to have this culture that they're really wanting to be. And I think they'll have a legacy. And I think the success will follow that. That's my advice. And I'm going to try to follow it the best I can as well.
Love it.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. Well, my bow tie got more and more crooked the more we talked. It's like a
I have one last question for you, Leah.
Okay.
I can talk hours with you, but
I thank you.
The time a little bit. Could you give us 3 tips how to get started with introducing an inclusive approach? 3.
Number 1, get rid of the barrier to entry. Get rid of the 2 to 5 years experience. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. And it's terrifying, but do it. 2, have a really strong recruiting team that helps you to find the right people, regardless of their background. I don't look at resumes when I talk to people anymore. I don't look at resumes. I want to hear their caricature. I don't want their act. We can all lie about a resume. We can all have accomplished things. Some of the most terrible humans have accomplished a lot of things. Get rid of the resume while you're talking to them. Have a human conversation. Who is their character? What are they looking to do? And can you give them that? And 3, build a really strong onboarding program, a program for everyone in your company to go through every department, through every, executive layer, and put as much emphasis on having your team ready to go as you would if you were, building an army, because your team is an army and they should be really skilled and they should be ready to go on day 1. And that'll help you get the diversity. Is if you build a program, you can put them through. And I can build a program like that. You can build a program like that. There's a lot of people that can, but have it be strong and good, and put time into onboarding employees, the right employees. Those are my 3 things.
I love those.
Love it.
But it's more like building a tribe, Leah, instead of an army.
Yeah. That's a better word for now in life, right? Yeah. Like it's a tribe of people. But I think at the end of the day, it's just like, you want people to have skill sets, and it's great. I think one of the things that is just the most baffling to me is 2 things. One, that people do not have a fun onboarding program, something that makes them learn and enjoy the job from day 1, and that they're organized with it. And the second, that they don't have that throughout people's career. Like, could you say what your job description is right now? Like, that, could you say your job description the same way that your boss would say it over the time that you've been in your job? We all grow and we forget what we're supposed to be focused on a lot, which is okay. But I think that if we constantly went through trainings, if we constantly went through like career development within our own organization, then we would all be more aligned with exactly what we're doing today and how to grow a little bit stronger each day. And I don't think we put enough emphasis on internal workings of a company. We focus so much on the external, and it's distracting. And I think it costs us a lot of money.
Well said, Leah. So I'm looking back at a real fun and valuable dialogue as well. I think you tick the box, Leah. I've laughed multiple times. So good,
because my kid has a cold, so I haven't slept a lot. So my jokes are.
No, it was really good. So thanks for sharing all your stories and your point of view and advice on this topic. Really some helpful tips, I think, for the audience here, and some inspiration as well. So the conclusion of this podcast for me, to wrap it up, I think I've noted down a few things, but for me, human at the core, drop the act, and just being a human is really what brings it up to the forefront, I would say. And then if you learn to work together, like from a community mindset, different opportunities arise for everybody in the team, and how cool is that? So thank you so much, Leah, for being our guest. I think if people want to reach out to you, they can best do that probably to LinkedIn or follow you, I guess. Or
yes, you can follow me on LinkedIn. Please do. And also, if you're in Pavilion, I'm a member of Pavilion as well. So cool. I have 2 Lisbeths now.
We have 2 Lisbeths now. That's the fun thing at the end. That's our sister. No?
What's better than 1? 2. That's awesome.
Exactly. And she was complaining about having 10 Jeroens. Now we have 2 Lisbeths.
You're having 2 Lisbeths
now. I love it. That's human, right? Like, even with my yard work a minute ago, I was like devastated, but then I was like, This is where we're at. This is where we're at. Kids are going to run in. Yard work's going to start happening right when you're in the middle of a conversation. We're going to freeze. Like, these things happen, and just like embrace it. Who cares anymore? It just shows that we're human. I love it.
Exactly. Drop the act, just being human. So thanks a lot, Leah, and thanks everybody for listening in, and we'll see you next time. And thanks a lot, Leah, for being our amazing guest.
I appreciate it. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, Leah.